Hello and welcome to this edition of the Inter-University Debates on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. On this episode, first of all, I want to congratulate all Ugandans upon making 62 years of independence. In the words of George William Kapkoma, we say, "O Uganda, may God uphold thee," and at the end they say, "May we always stand." Those words should be a reflection of what we do as a country, but also the progress we attain as a country should be significant. 62 years is not really a time you can talk about of no progress, of discomfort, of uncertainty. We should be at a time when we can speak and the world listens. And I want to pick what the country, through the people I host on today's panel, say whether we've progressed in terms of the economics, in terms of the politics, in terms of the social well-being. And I know there are a series of stories in the country, including the recently concluded National Housing and Population Census, and there are very many conversations around that. The realities of people, and there was also another report that talked about Uganda having just 20% of its population as poor people, 80% are okay. Now those are all conversations we're going to have on this show, but before we get into the depth of that, I want to first invite the people I have on today's panel to say hello to us, and then we can continue with the conversation. I should start. In this country we say ladies first.
And then in other countries?
It's a mix. Yeah.
Anyway, happy independence. My name is Amumpaire Hanah Terisah. I am a second-year student at Makerere University Business School, pursuing a Bachelor's of International Business.
Amumpaire Terisah, Hanah.
Yes.
You're most welcome.
Thank you
Happy
so
independence.
much.
And I don't know, independence happened. Were your parents alive? They should have been here.
They were alive. They were there.
Good. Lots of stories to talk to us about the independence and what they told you about it, but also what you have experienced in this independent Uganda. Bwana, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Philip, and the production team. And CCG at it has been a while without me appearing here. So when I come back, I need to congratulate you and the team on a lot that has been achieved. Here the Inter-University Debates have also been returned. I'm a product of those debates some 5-6 years ago. I'm an old folk here. The week has also had a lot of national celebrations. Uganda has marked 800 years of its independence as a kingdom. So we congratulate the Uganda community. As you highlighted, we have had issues of U-boss, but also as people in the constitutional space. I think ever since 95, you have also marked the Constitutional Day in the week. So at independence, we can say a lot has happened in the same week, but which should show the trajectory of either growth or decline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Masawi. Ivan, Eastern Uganda very well represented, and he will perhaps talk a little bit about is it Eastern Uganda?
The Eastern Revolutionary Platform.
Yes, Revolutionary Platform. He has that they are rooting for that region, and it's very powerful that the region is getting such very active voices. But colleagues, Uganda at 62. A lot has been talked about on this independence, but let me start here. There are people that have often come out to say Uganda, and indeed many African countries, were not ready for independence, and they have argued that it should have been delayed. Masawi, was Uganda ready for independence, and is it something we should celebrate as a country?
No slave on planet Earth has ever been ready for freedom. It is just fought for. What you're fighting for, you can either die or you can achieve it and live past that day. Let's leave the literature trying to always... There are those elite people who always say, are they ready or are they not ready? Those are minor contradictions. Our independence, to those who have been in the fight, is not 62 years. Our independence can go back to 1895 to Kabalega. There were people who had perished before 1962 in the fight. When you achieve a fight, you don't do away with the history of the sacrifice. Myopically, the British have enslaved our brains to accept that it is in 1962 when we won, where we said the independence fight started. That started far back. Even when you look at the IK Musazis, the people who died just fighting for independence. You can never ask, were we ready when some people lost their grandparents? You can never ask, were we ready when a full kingdom lost its leader to go and live in exile? You can never ask, were we ready when kings were being taken into exile? So, I think we can only analyze what we have picked from there and what we have changed or what has grown given with the status, because this was about status. Freedom is about status. Once you have your status to have improve on your contribution in decision making, is what freedom is. Freedom is about being relevant. It is about being felt. Even if they lie you how much that you have freedom, when you don't feel it, freedom is like hunger. When you're satisfied with freedom, you feel it. When you're suffocated, you feel you're being suffocated. I think if we are to ask, basing on the threshold you people take of 62 years from the time we got independence, at least me here, I'm a last born out of 11. My parents, especially my dad, was a teenager at that time because he's at 80 now. My mom is 72 years, so she has at least 10 years on the day of independence. I can't pick their story how it felt like, but we can see that we can never neglect paying respect, paying appreciation to the sacrifice of all the people who have built the past 62 years. It is just being dishonest or being too political to say that Uganda has not improved in anything. You be a witch doctor in an African setting. To say Uganda has not made any strides towards a certain direction. I think there are those that have had challenges. Politically we have had challenges, but you cannot rub away any footprints, contribution of either our grandparents, either our parents, because it is also not a guarantee that we would be here seated discussing this. There was no guarantee that Uganda by this time our economy would have to look so and would have to be at this level we have achieved today. That was not a guarantee. So it's why we always take it as a day, even when we have certain things right and others not right. But we appreciate those who have carried the cross up to here.
Thank you so much, Ivan, for that. Terisah, you see, Masawi talks about the people that were in the fight. And we know that we had people like he mentioned from as far as 1895. He talked about Kabalega, and the story is quite long. Mwanga, when you come and your social studies, at least as a student, has told you about people like Awich, people like Abeka Kacha, Mama Yanja, people like Ignatius Musazi, people like Bidandi Sali, people like very many Ugandans were part of that fight. Apollo Kagwa, a lot of things. What message, what should we as Ugandans, and now as independent Ugandans, how should we look or talk about these people that were part of this fight? Because these are people that died so that we can have the freedom.
Yeah.
What should we say to them? And we know most of them have their grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
If I'm to pick from the previous question, did Uganda's independence come in at the right time? I want to now become a bit spiritual in this moment and say that it came in at the right time when we all needed it. When we look at the people that were in that battle, that were in that fight, they had something they were looking at. They had a vision of where they wanted Uganda to be. They had a picture of what they wanted their state to look like. Whereas they were captivated and they were, you know, enslaved and all that was happening, they still had the fight at heart that we should see Uganda come to pass. So when we look through the history of our country from that time, from the time we actually got independence, you realize there were so many things that happened. Now that is where the big question comes in. Were the people who took on power really ready? Or were we, you know, were we introduced into it? Was it something new? Because you realize was something somehow gambling with power. And when we have Mutesa come in first, and then we have Obote, then we have, you realize there were so many catastrophic events. But still, we are very grateful that we are here, and we have marked 62 years. It has not been an easy ride, but the people that have been have somehow added a brick. They have not left an empty
Thank you.
slate.
And sitting back on that history, when the spirits of those people, do you think they are proud of their effort when they look at us today?
Definitely. I can't say 100% because each person has a different vision of how they want something to be. Yeah. So you might find that they might be, they might not be, but I don't think it's 100%. But we are still in the journey.
Thank you so much. Ivan, post-independence, one of the things we normally talked about as, and you see, much of the things that took us into the struggle, when you look at the activities of Musazi and Mayanja and the king of Busoga then, Nadiope and the other people, one of the things that took us that lane was economics. People wanted economic freedom. People wanted market for their agricultural produce. People wanted to have fair prices for their produce, and that is economics. People wanted good housing. When you look at our economics post-independence, is it a sector to celebrate when you look at the economy of the country and how it has transited over time? I know we had very many times of war, times of discomfort, but what is your assessment of our economy since then and where we are now?
Thank you, Philip. Before I even come to that, 2022 I happened to visit South Africa. I was in Durban for a training. A gentleman there made a very interesting statement that even when it took Mandela 27 years in prison, it took South Africa very many years of fighting apartheid up to 94 and FDW Clark to get liberated. It never took away the day-to-day challenges South Africans were facing, both in apartheid and in the post-apartheid. So when you ask economically, the whole world globally, economically is not in the state it was in. Whether you go on using indicators of gross domestic product, indicators of human capital development, indicators of trade efficiency, you go to IMF, you use debt consumptions, you go to local consumptions. It is automatic that a human race is a growing race. The biggest challenge is, I think God had to leave certain things for himself. Leadership, unlike management, is so different. most of the colonial masters tricked Africans into management, but they never tricked them into leadership.
That's very true.
So we have found ourselves in a lot of managerial positions, but not leadership positions. The design of even our political nature, if you come to it as a manager, you become a crew, you're fighting to just be relevant. Yet, as a human, your contribution, you don't need to fight to make a contribution. You just need to play your role. Fight in your role, in your line, not. But today, even us, maybe who have been in these youth political spaces, the environment has designed it that the bureaucracy is about managerial survival. How do you manage to survive? So when we look at our economy, these ones who meet Muzee can really give a good history, because they'll tell you our economy was for the 3 C's, cotton, coffee. Oh, we came. Uganda in 1962, its GDP was about maybe 5 billion Ugandan shillings. Today they are in million US dollars. I don't know as today now how many million US dollars.
I think according to Ministry of Finance, we are now at 55 billion US dollars.
Which change by round off the more the dollar changes. But it's why I always don't want to commit to the value. Ngobi is the only man in Uganda who has the most efficient value as of today. They are former lecturer. So these things change. Is why I told you we can never disregard anyone's contribution to Uganda. Whether whether they sold who killed the Ugandans, or what. There is some, contribution sometimes is indirectly, especially in economics. Economics, you achieve more results when you're uniform than when you're porous. Part of Uganda's biggest challenge, even with this NRM gambling of PDM, Emyoga, Wonabagaga, replication of programs. I think Nyerere tried it with the Ujama in TZ. But the biggest challenge they have is the uniformity to purpose. As long as something, purpose is not directed to where you want the vision to go, to where you want the results to be generated, that is the most dangerous part about economics. That we can grow as an economy and feel our GDP is big, people's livelihood has increased, the money economy saturation has increased, but we may increase as a part of uniformity of the global status. But then is why actually this question would have been best addressed by our recent population census. But unfortunately, I find it very unfit for discussion, because a census report where you have all the time to go and sit and bring out clear results. You bring out results in a hurry, showing my tribe, the Wagisi, we have decreased. Yet we have created more districts in 10 years, had more constituencies.
Thank you. And I know we're going to have a conversation around the census.
So, to conclude on the economy, I can say, first of all, even the global economy changed dynamics. The trading changed. We left the money to a currency. So I think even our trade embargo also, we had to change the dynamics of trading. The only this service, you can never blame all Ugandans' problems with the current president. I think it Ugandans as all is that we never leveraged so much on our agriculture. And those who have leveraged are few. But they want to take it that you find one man with 2,000 cows, but when you boss, your friends go to count, they will count that Ugandans have so many cows. But when cows are for one man is a white hat.
Thank you.
So that is how selfish and greed our economics is. You will find that 1% of Ugandans are rich and 99 are still in an economy where they are on $2 a day. But there is a way we shall polish it. So it's why I told you that.
I mean, the world runs on statistics, but we agree that of course,
as long as a country you have wrong national statistics, even your objectives will be wrong.
Thank you so much.
Actually,
Hanah.
in one of Amos Wekesa's interviews, he said, actually, Ugandan problems are you have very good weather, you have too much land, you have those are your problems.
Yeah, we have too much of good things and
Yeah.
they've become a problem
And maybe
to
we
us.
haven't learned how to actually leverage on these
Exactly,
resources.
and that's what I wanted to ask you. Look, he talked about the economy of three C's that was established by Dr. Milton Obote, cotton, copper, and coffee. And this is something, and we also had the T's, the tourism and tobacco.
Tea.
Yes, and these are things that seem to work for Uganda
time,
and Dr. Bote's brother Nachom. When you look at where we are now, the economics we had at the time and how we traded through the cooperatives, and he will talk to you about the Bugisi Cooperative Union and very many other cooperatives, the Ankole, Kaba, Bachiga, very many of them were in the country and people were able to trade and get to earn money and take their children to school and get health care. Today, some people claim that a replica of the same is the programs he talked about, the parish development model and Mioga and Bonabagagawale and a couple of others. Do you think, and maybe since you do international business, what kind of economics are we running? And is it something that is sustainable for the progress and growth of this country?
Looking at what we had back then and what we have now is somehow different. We can't really compare because seasons have changed, times have changed, climate has changed, everything has changed. But what we had then worked for us. But the period we are in right now that's why the president keeps encouraging wealth creation, wealth creation. Last time he was telling us there's a difference between development and wealth creation. Whereas development will be for us as a community, for us as a country, wealth creation goes back to you as a person. What are those sources of income you're putting in place that are going to generate money for you? So now we definitely agriculture has always been the backbone of Uganda. And we can't, but you see that now it's more of value addition. What more can we add on for us to be able to stand on the global, the global markets and everything? Because now it's all the time we are packaging these raw materials, and we are the ones now take them and then they bring them back and it's double the price. And that's how you find that inflation hits in and everything. So right now we are looking into adding value to what we have and encouraging more people to actually engage into these different activities. When we look at these different government programs of the parish development model, the MYOGA, they're here to give you startup capital. Yeah, but we can't forget that startup capital is actually not money itself, it's mindset. Whereas they can continue giving to people all these different things, if they don't go back to the communities and educate people on things like financial literacy, on how to manage money, how to start, it's all going to, 1 million, you can eat it in one day and it's gone. And yet you can give it to someone and you find that 10 years later, they're eating from the same because of how they thought about it. So it's now trying to add value to what we have and trying to encourage this new generation to actually go back and, build up and think. Yeah.
Earlier you talked about being spiritual, and I know in the Bible somewhere there is a story of some 3 people that were given seeds. One was given 1 and 2 and 3 to keep, and one multiplied and the other just kept and something like that.
Yeah.
In the words of Wakesa, like you said, Uganda has been gifted so much. Fertile soils. 86% of our soil is arable. You can't find that on any other country in the world. 86%. I think the other country that is closer to us is at 72. But we're in a country where people die of hunger. We have fresh water. When you look at our lakes and rivers, we have fresh water apart from Lake Katwa, I think. The rest of the lakes is fresh water.
True.
But we have people dying of thirst, animals dying because there is no water. We stop farming because we cannot irrigate, and we have this water. We have the weather. The rainfall comes in, we get sun. And what is the challenge that has stopped us from transiting from us, like you mentioned, becoming wealth creators? We've stayed on the side of development. Why have we failed to transit to the side of wealth creation as a people, yet we have all the resources we need?
You know, our biggest problem is ourselves. Us as people, we have somehow failed to work together as one and build one another. When someone gets, it's for me, myself, and I. Whereas that's why we are placed in communities. That's why we are placed in families, because everything is supposed to be, you know, supposed to be a ripple effect, yeah, from one another. But when you see that even our own leaders, we have been singing corruption, shouting corruption everywhere. Right now is corruption, yeah, and because we have failed ourselves as people. So if we go back to the drawing board and re-strategize of how are things supposed to be done in society, accountability is key. If you are being given money as a society, if that PDM money is given to you as a parish, you have reason, every reason to account for it, to ask for accountability of how much was spent, how much was used, what were the benefits of this to our own parish, because that is how we're supposed to grow, because we are in this small, so definitely we have failed ourselves.
Thank you. Ivan, Terisah tells me we have failed ourselves.
I think she's a student of international business law. They study entrepreneurship processes. There is a debate between nature and nurture. It is a very big debate for any business student. I guess when you reach there, you will come back and justify your statement.
Okay.
Our debate here is that our nature and our nurture are not complying. The way we are being raised to do things is not fit for our environment, because they fail to get an interlink. You did bring an example of the disintegration of cooperatives, circles, trade unions. Even the disintegration of the traditional agricultural sector itself, it came as politics being an assassin to economics. There is when for a certain political group to thrive, you need to first disintegrate them, because even economics is part of politics. If you are dealing with people who are also economically stable, it is very hard to penetrate them. So it's, I will not say as politicians, but in politics, certain tactics may go that side.
But I don't think economics is part of politics.
You will argue it, but if the politicians are the ones who make your budget, the politicians allocate your resources, so how does economics go away from politics? Who determines what tax will be taxed, what will be used, who will do the oversight?
In fact,
is a politician.
Students of political science are given a series of definitions of politics, and one of them is politics is defined as who gets what, when, and how. So if it's who gets what and when, what are we getting? It is the money, it is the share of the country.
When you go to Kenya, why they have tried to save the economy, although it is also as indebted as ours, is that the bonding at society. People working in groups, they try to save something of that culture. It all began here in our corridor as a Nyerere mindset. And I once said that Obote copied it very well for cooperatives to kick-start it. Because why it was very well, you would just transit people from working for colonialists to organizing themselves to form a Bugis cooperative union and gather all those resources together for their own regional development. It would also give people enough responsibility to work for their regions, because to decentralize them is a lot of economic responsibility. But now that we centralize the economic responsibility, that the government is in charge of troubleshooting, of mobilizing resources, of planning, of budgeting, is limited to a few. I think even you as a reader, you can read Karl Marx and Max Weber's debates. They really fight on capitalism and social. China has had to move from such a mindset where it is. Actually, where we were is what China solved to be where it is today.
And you see, that is my question to you. Look, we are in this society where we have engineers like yourself, we have experts on business, we have doctors, we have all these kinds of people. And you have the knowledge to transform.
The engineer is isolated enough that his knowledge is useless in where he's standing also.
So, and that's why I bring in the example of China. When you look through how China came, that revolution of Mao Zedong getting into power in 1949, and how they transited to create that great proletarian revolution of 1960, and the ideals of that revolution, and how whoever did not agree with the transition of their community was eliminated or asked to leave their community. Do you think we need that kind of revolution, even when we see that sometimes it has dangerous side effects, for us to transform our society as Uganda, but also the entire continent?
If we drive back to our first question around independence, the way China handled post-independence has been very different from us. That today, this very week here, we had on a Monday, a CDF is true, so a CDF, Moses is CDF, right? Because sometimes one thing is only the son of the president. Yes, he's a CDF. He may have his reason, right, with part of the colonial masters still around in form of Americans, but the approach maybe may not have been the most.
So you're referring to the tweets he put up
the US
relating to the ambassador of US.
You know, a CDF in any country is a very big person. He can even overthrow the president. Because he has the army on his side, can say, let's overthrow this. In West Africa, it is the CDFs capturing the... No one has captured more presidents in Africa than Amin was a CDF. As long as even we still have people feeling foreign powers have penetrated much of our governance, that we are still fighting to just completely cut off ourselves from having external influence our local way of doing things. Was not the same case for China. China first accepted we are Chinese. They went back to their traditions, to their culture. They cut off from being replicated in such a way that they reflect something else from what an original Chinese is. They restored their cultures and norms of doing things. These ones, their grandfather uses a very good word, ideology. It is the most effective word. It would be they restored their ideology of community, of doing things. As long as we don't have that national consensus, you know, the biggest challenge we have as Uganda, we look too much of the results and forget the process. Every day, whether in parliament, in cabinet, in political parties, in youth, us in the private sector, people are discussing results. M&E is evaluating results. You will never find Ugandans investing time in processes. We like accidents. By God's luck, the pastor will pray it will happen. If you are intentional, you will pay much interest in the processes. I believe Moses' reaction can show you where we are at independence, right? But if we paid more to our processes, how best do we build capacity locally to cut away from certain aids that put you as a CDF to a point of feeling dissatisfied because when your forces are being sanctioned, you also feel bad. Even if it was me, Masawi as your CDF, I would find it as manipulation, right? But if you build capacity using the next, the money given to PDF the other week, 29 billion to go and invest, and came back with a profit of with only 9 billion remaining. They ate 18 and returned 9. That this is the money remaining. If you have such a UPDF, and then really we have issues to solve. We can never blame our issues on the colonialists. They are not here. They are not here. We are here, blacks alone. We have had
but I mean, let us agree, even when they are not here, they're in charge of what happens globally.
Is
They're
why
in
I
charge
told
of
you.
global trade through the World Trade Organization. They are in charge of global politics through the United Nations. They are in charge of global transport. They are in charge of global tourism, everything. So they're actually here.
In the game, to win a game, you need to work to be up front of your opponent. If our goal was to raise your economic question the way you asked it, was to say that Uganda is its nature, is supporting, nurturing Ugandans who can make its nature more of Singapore, whom we were at the same level when Museveni came to power. The questions of economic powers would not be the question. Because your question is also similar to that question of results. You want to think that because there are big boys controlling, you should look at what big boys are lying for you, but not organizing yourself locally here.
Actually, there's a writer who writes about that in the psychology of self-hatred. And he talks about how Africans, okay, in this case we'll put it in the context of Ugandans, we have detached ourselves from our own selves, from our own land. In that now we want to compare our economies, we want to compare how are we doing, and yet we forget that the battle was different. Whereas the time they had to put in the work and develop themselves, we're still fighting wars, we're still fighting to live with one another, we're still fighting for our land, we're still... So he says it's a very unfair comparison.
Terisah, it's 62 years later.
Thank
you so much. And,
where I want to derive
we're going to pick up on that.
Development should be detached from time. Time is a baseline for auditing,
yeah,
but is why me I'm more interested. Why I've had very many challenges with politicians of my age, of my generation. We have attached time limits. Why corruption is high? People have a time limits to when they should be rich. They have promised the people in the village, I need to steal and come here and show you.
But you see, there is a time limit to when you are an engineer. This house is to be put together in 2 years. If we have that limit and the resources are there, why don't we have that house in 2 years? If a road is to be constructed in 5 years, if a hospital at Lobo is to be put up in 3 years,
you can solve that in a process than attaching to time?
That process should be bound to time.
I think if we best discuss the processes, we would even build capacity in debates.
Thank you so
because
much.
I know you want to audit what you have not seen. How was it constructed?
It is very good that the president now talks about... The president now says he is actually back to the process and he should be transforming this economy in the next 10 years.
You can't tell me after
$50 billion
to
$500 billion in the next 10 years.
I believe
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the conversation. The inter-university debates goes into a very short break and we should be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that very short break. It is the inter-university debates on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today we are discussing the independence and making an assessment of the progress we've made as a country, as a people, as a leadership, and what should we do better, and what should we do well with actually in this country. And we are joined by another colleague in the conversation, joining Masawi, Ivan, and Amumpaire, Terisah. Colleague, greetings and you're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
First, do you think Uganda has benefited from its independence, and what are some of those pointers you could talk to that have really stood out in this journey of 62 years?
First of all, I'm Alex. To the viewers, I'm Alex Wamakota.
It's my brother. I'm discovering it right here.
Yeah.
I come from the hills of Bududa, but currently I stay here in Central. I'm the acting ES of the New World Division. So I would be very selfish if I say Uganda has not gotten anything from its independence. It's been a journey of 62 years. I personally, first of all, appreciate where we are as a country. We have had some good number of achievements. But then when we draw in comparison with counterparts and the nature of resources that we have, I feel we are not where we are supposed to be as a country. And then as young people of this country, it's up to us to shape to where we project to be. We had a challenge that in the 62 years, as we count, we have some that were a wastage. We entirely wasted them. It's like a student who is in school, then you realize you have to be serious when you're in senior 4, then you fail, then you have to work hard for that additional year that you have to correct your results. So in most cases, for the students that do receipt, that receipting year, they are very serious to make sure they are not getting what they got. When I draw this in comparison to Uganda, when we look at the time we had our civil wars as a country, when we look at the time when we had too much political instabilities in the country, we wasted so many years that we would have used for socio-economic transformation. But then, the good news, it's never late.
So wait, and I want to use your very example. You say that year you receipt, you have to correct a lot of things and you don't want to get the same results like you had earlier. Have we done our exams better on the receipting year?
Have we reset?
Just because we had the civil war, like you mentioned. I mean, a couple, not civil war, but a couple of wars in the country.
I think I normally count Uganda's progress so much from 1986 and beyond, because that's the time security, national security is the basis for national transformation.
The heartbeat.
Regardless, it's the heartbeat of everything. You can't say, we cannot rate Ukraine right now, you understand, because of the insecurity. Even if it was at a very good level, it has dropped down at a fastest state and at a fastest rate. So I rate it from 1986 because that's when we kind of started having some security, national security. That you can wake up one day and you go to town to work when you're very sure you're not going to have a bomb attack. And when it happens, it's a question of almost everyone that, hey, how comes that we are now starting to have this? So it means people have appreciated the fact that there is security in the country. But then when we go to other factors, when we look at the level of corruption in the country, when you look at the perception, the mindset of the people who are employed in government offices, you really see, we feel sorry for the country, because it's only in government where people see an opportunity to make money. That if I'm selling shoes at 80,000 and it's a government project, now I feel like, no, this is government, I have to sell it at 180. So people are still lacking that nationalistic character of I'm doing this for my country. I've seen it in other countries. Whenever people get a chance to serve the government, they do it with a patriotic vigor, that I'm doing this so that people remember that when the contract was awarded to me, I had the best road for my country, I had the best hospital in my country, I provided the best services as a head teacher in my school. So people in other countries are not seeing government officers as an opportunity to get rich, but as an opportunity to serve their country.
Wow. Thank you so much, Alex, for that. Terisah, And I want to pick up from there. You see, he talks about how we view public service. People are looking at personal gain. When you look through the years, 1962 to where we are, the leadership we've had, when you talk about the service of Kabaka Mutesa, the service of Dr. Obote, the service of Amin, H.E. Amin, when you look the service of Paul Mwanga, the service of Yusuf Ule, the service of Tito Okello Lutua, the service of Binaisa, and now the service of General Yoweri Museveni. Do you think that now the people in leadership, and I know you're a member of the NRM, is that so?
Well, yeah.
Do you think we are at a time where the leadership now recognizes that we have to serve the country, and indeed are they serving the country to make sure it progresses to the next level in terms of development, in terms of peace, in terms of economic sustainability and so on?
It's a hard take, but I want to believe that for each person who goes down deep in their village to campaign, to contest, they have a reason why they want to do it. They have a reason why they want to appear on that ballot paper. They have a reason why they want to enter parliament. And somehow, somewhere we see there's always a reason why you're taking up a leadership position.
And that could be a personal reason of just gaining something as an individual.
It could be personal, or it could be, you know, you have the heart for it. That's why he was talking about the difference between the leaders and managers. Yeah. So now you see that most of the leaders who have taken up these positions are not able to account. So if you're not able to account for what you've done, then did you have the main objective as to why you entered that office? Did you have a reason why you wanted to enter that office? That's what I was talking about, that somehow, somewhere we are failing our own selves. So if we go back and think about why we are in those positions, think about why we are doing what we are doing, then you speak to yourself that reason and get to know, if I'm serving my country, we can't eliminate the fact that the people who are in positions and they're doing their very best. They are patriotic, they have the heart of their nation at their heart.
When we keep saying that at times politicians have let us down, political scientists keep telling us that the leadership of a country is a true reflection of the peoples of that country, or indeed a society. Is it true that we as Ugandans have not loved our country this much? And indeed, why are we not loving our country?
Definitely, we do not love our country that much.
Why?
Why? we can all answer that why. Because if we we can all answer that why. Because if you talk to, if you hear the Americans say you kill one American and it will all come for you, I don't think it's the same story with Ugandans. It's a different story.
Thank you. And I think Wamakota has something to add to that. But as I get to Masawi, and I think this is something we should engage. It is something we should engage on as a people. Because look, I'll give you the example of USA, because she brought it up. I was following some research in the media space of the USA, and they tell you 80% of radio shows and sometimes television shows, when they are to start, they start with playing the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. I never hear the national anthem unless we have maybe a visiting head of state here, maybe we have some visitors around, or something, maybe the president is visiting. Yet this is a symbol of our identity as a people, that we're proud of our country.
At assemblies in school, you used to do it.
It is assembly.
Your DNA was just meeting,
and people are just forced to do it. You have to be there and you must sing the national anthem.
Some people actually don't know it.
You get. I don't want to say what we used to sing as kids. But look, this country here, it is our home. It is what has brought us up. But we seem not in love with it. When you listen to the words in our anthem and you listen to the words in the American anthem, the Americans are talking about throwing bombs in the air and how that is the pride of their country and how they are proud to stand by that because they can bomb the hell out of you wherever you destabilize them. Here, we are singing peace, but even the peace, we're not proud of singing it. Why? Maybe any of you.
I think that the love for
our country is a nurture. It's not nature. We don't get born with the love for our country. It's what we go through.
That we are taught.
That's why I can easily love Rwanda more than I love Uganda, just in case I've grown from that system, even if I'm Ugandan, understand? So the nurture in Uganda is a little different. I have colleagues in Tanzania. I have 3 friends I normally refer to. There's one called Lisa Pedro, there's one called Tryphon Augustine Mwinuka, and one called Samuel Mazota.
Shout out.
Now these guys have visited their country, not once, not twice. The young generation in Tanzania have a vigor of loving their country, and it's something Mwalimu put in them from the time of independence.
What did he put?
What exactly did he
Because it seems that's the dosage we need for this
a
country.
mentorship dosage from childhood, from primary level, from secondary level, until university. That
Ingredients.
people, the young people are demanded themselves of what they have done for their country before they demand what their state, what the state is doing for them. So by the time I'm here, I'm demanding myself of what I've done for my community. Before I start asking government to give me a job, to give me free education, to give me free medication, I first ask myself of what I've done for my country. You see,
And I think that's where we are going wrong.
yes, the love for your country does not stop in words, and it is actions. When you love your country, you show it. You cannot love your country and you're seen to make any post that affects it, even on your social media hand. You get that just because I've been affected, so I don't mind whether what I'm posting can cut my can cut some of the aid we get. You understand? Because we're a crippled country, we know our economic welfare, but there are very many examples of people that don't have
but
this
look,
country to them.
Mr. Wamakota, when you say that our love is drawn from the nurture, like you talk about it, and what is our nurture? Let us talk about it. We're in a country where the education is not good. We have UPE, but we know the quality of UPE is very low. We're in a country where infrastructure in terms of roads is very poor. When you drive through the city, you know what it looks like. We're in a country where people are dying of hunger. We're in a country where people until I think last week, there was drought in Western Uganda and animals were dying because they had no water to drink and there was no pasture for them to feed on. We're in a country where the people of Kasese are insecure. Every other day, ADF comes in and kills school-going children, kills people in their farms, kills tourists. We're in a country where people do not have jobs. Majority of young people do not have jobs. That is our nurture. And that nurture informs the tweet that person puts on their X handle, such that the donor you talk about thinks their money should not come to this country. So I think the nurture now relates to what the people are saying, and indeed it's what we deserve.
That's what I was saying. If we are to drive ourselves to the patriotic country that we want, it's a process very many people don't want to subject themselves to. It's not going to be a 1 year, 5 year process. It's something like a 20 years process. And it needs us now, this young generation, to be very determined towards it. Because one, when today I become, for instance, a procurement officer for KCCA, what am I procuring for KCCA? At how much? How am I making sure the budget that is assigned to KCCA is just enough to make Kampala a noble city? You get how is the commander of the mountain division making sure that his area is very safe? As a commander of the UPDF, how is he protecting the boundaries to make sure ADF is not crossing? Not just looking at how much has been assigned to my office, how much can I say I bought a vehicle at 500 million so that I save 200? These are the things that are affecting the country in the long run.
And
Thank
I
you
think
so much.
when
Yes.
you ask where exactly are we going wrong, the Banyankole have a saying that says,
Yes.
akatuba kinkakar kabisa. Like, you put it
I
in
think
when
it
it's
goes
still
beyond
wet.
most of the tribes.
Yes.
The ability to bend a
Another
stick while
So,
it's still wet.
So if in the nurturing, we are not teaching children to love their country, to sing their anthem, to love what they do, to try, because once you don't love what you do, there's no way you're going to invest in it. There's no way you're going to put your time in it. So now if we, I'm part of a students organization called Africa Kwetu, where we are trying to instill that patriotism spirit in children. And so we do several school outreaches. Last month in August, we were at Mary Hill trying to carry out that patriotic, where they initiate you into as a cadre, something like that. So, but then at the end of the day, we're asking, why do you go through this training where they're telling you, turn, move, run? Like, it's supposed to instill a spirit of discipline. Because once you're disciplined, you are committed. And once you're committed, you're going to love your country. Definitely, I want to believe that these other countries we look up to also have their problems within. They also have, somehow they're dissatisfied with some things, but they don't expose them like we do. Because once you expose them, then everyone has an opinion to what you're going through.
Thank you. And I want to invite
Yeah.
Masawi. I know you gave your time to why we don't love our country to this,
Yeah,
but I want
even ask the stories of Steve.
But look, I want to invite you. First, you all know we have a budget of teaching patriotism in this country. We also have a budget of teaching Ugandans how to drink coffee, but that's not where I want to go. Look, I want to speak to the education, and indeed, again, part of the nurture we talked about. When I go to school, I'm taught about the importance of John Speak. I'm taught about the importance of the Canadian prairies. I'm taught about the importance of Napoleon Bonaparte to France. Little is taught to me about the importance of Lake Victoria to Uganda and what it means for me if I protect it. How does Uganda benefit? Little is taught to that young child in primary 5 today how important Mountain Renzol, or he'll be taught that is a tourist attraction. But they do not break down the contribution of Mount Renzori to the wealth of Uganda, to the water people use in that part of the country, to how those trees on that mountain help the community construction and so on. And they're not told that when you don't protect it, this is what happens. We are told what happens when you don't protect the Great Lakes region somewhere. And I don't know what your view is, but is it something about our education? Because ideally they say the education, and this is at least from the basis of the Chinese, that it should be a reflection of the ways of life of the peoples. Now our education is teaching us how to survive in London, how to survive in Canada, not how to survive in Uganda. What do you say?
Thank you, Philip. I think my home brother here had tried to demystify the issue of patriotism very well by bringing the debate of nature versus nurture. It is only here in Uganda where the National Leadership Institute, people go there when they are already political leaders. They are Anita Among and all these fifths, Jim, who is it, they likes, they went there, and when they were already men, elders. Imagine if they went there like me, where I was still at Umwalia Primary in Bududa, if you went there at that young age, like her example she has given. If leadership education was made basics, people at a young age, I always feel sorry for those tutors at in Chankwanzi, the Odawuks, Nwasasiras, the Kakuru, Kanoserugan group. They send them mature adults who have just stolen in a midweek to go for a training on patriotism ideology on a weekend. He stole on Friday, then he's in an ideology meeting for patriotism. I'm one of those people here in Uganda who I don't believe that NRM doesn't know the problem. It knows it. Look at its 10 points programs. There is nothing that is not needed in the country. Whether they try to integrate it to the 4-point programs, I think patriotism still remains. But why the NRM has created unnecessary, okay, they are poor in opposition by default, some by following, some by ignorance, some by all what. There are people who are not in government because they just don't know how a government looks like. But I believe that a few of us here maybe who may not be in government, because we have seen that government has failed to just make changes on small implementations of certain processes.
That's a point.
The issues of change is part of growth. And change will not only be in ways that give you comfort. Change should be discomforting as possible if you want results. You can't ask for an education which you inherited from colonial masters, where Lake Victoria is not gazetted, where eating Malewa is not documented. But you want to say that why doesn't this child defend their Kadodi from Vugisu? Why don't they defend their circumcision? Right? As long as we don't document, the problem here, even us here in Ties, we have it that is a responsibility of someone, not our own selves, to sit down and work for our own selves. We have, and it comes back to his example of nature versus nurture. Our nurturing has been, we have been told it is someone's responsibility. It is not by accident that NGOs across the world, their market is Africa. War across the world, their market is Central and East Africa, Somalia, DRC. Then you go to some parts of Middle East where you can use religious wars. It is not by accident. That they know these areas are rich and have resources. The other ones have oil. These ones have gold, have uranium. Well, the deep state doesn't work on accident. But it is your responsibility as someone who wants to fight for your existence, to liberate yourself. Is why when you brought the question of independence of 1960, I told you even the foolest of fools has contributed to Uganda in all those years lived. Even someone who lived and died maybe at 2 years, 1 year, contributed to the Uganda that is here today. In terms of maybe census, in terms of demographics, everyone has had a contribution. So the issue of education reform started far away ago, I think, before even most of us were born. I see they have tried to change syllabuses just to accommodate the issue of time. That now in our mindset, let's say we have time for co-curricular. Issue of change should be discomforting as possible. If you require a school to have a farm and it doesn't have it, you close it and people look for schools with farms to be on the market. And people learn how to look after a cow, not to die of drought, how to harvest water, how to integrate our African science and technology, how to be innovative about it. The sole biggest problem that we have created here is we manage our crisis management. Is why I gave you an example that people who are arrested for corruption are always taken for leadership training. Some to Museveni himself lectures them from morning to evening whenever he has time. I think if we look at a honest Ugandan, you'll just be tired of his conversations. But you will always see that there is a message on patriotism.
That's true.
Even when you don't like him, what obviously you will see it. Because you know they also pretend like you, they hear but don't do what he tells them.
I mean, the four now core principles of the NRM is patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. So
I've told you that it is not that they are fools, they don't know Uganda's problems. The challenge has come between matching the problems on paper and in reality. The regional disparities, it is just unfortunate that this census is not fit for purpose. We would be comparing regions quite well. I think the best paper which tried to compare well was the Equal Opportunities Report last year. That shows the disparities in regions, tribes, ethnicities, in representation. But those are small things, those are minor. The major would be building a Ugandan. Nurturing a Ugandan in an environment which support the nature it exists in. That would be the biggest contest. It would also be abnormal to say that politically it has been leaders have never had time. Museveni has had time, and we don't want to discredit he has not contributed to his building. But even us here, if we take it that is a president is responsible, we shall elect her, we shall elect him to be a president, but unless we demystify the issue of responsibility on Ugandans, we have even us who are in other spaces, not NRM, not government, even at workplaces, people have it in mindset that is the other person's role to ensure our salaries are good, even when they are not working. Once they sign a contract, is the other person's role to ensure for us we survive, even when they are not contributing.
Well, thank you. Wamakota, I know you want to talk to add something, but as you come in, you see, he talks about we don't document what is just about us, and that takes me to the census.
I don't document because I'm also part of it. I'm also not. I have no paper, no what that is documenting Africa, Ugandan assets.
Thank you. So, colleagues, you see, recently we had the National Housing and Population Census, 10 years later from the one we had in 2014, and many things have come around this census. First, as we speak, the document that was published by UBOS has now been withdrawn, and some contentious figures came around. I have passed by the office of the International Organization of Migration around twice this week, and I see every day there is a line of about 200 refugees that have just come to be registered there, and there is usually they've told us that we have about 1.5 million refugees in this country.
Oh,
and
more.
when you look, yes.
Because it is a business. Refugee business in Uganda is not we want to help them. It is a business.
Then UBOS tells us we have just 400,000, among other figures. How, for 10 years, with a budget, with a professional staff, did we fail to get figures of Ugandans and what they have and where we stand as a country? Wamakota.
I think I'll slightly, in one minute or two, first discuss the education. Little, I have a small disagreement. I think we need to empower our students to think so much of the application part of what they study. Because even if we change the syllabus and students don't want to apply, they won't. You see, the plantation farming,
Canadian prairies.
the plantation farming in Canadian prairies is taught because it's what is practical. It's what has been seen as a success
of their economy.
Because if you want to talk about doctors that are a success, we are not going to look for a failure to give us an example. We'll always look for the one that is a success. So the fishing in British Columbia,
Forestry
in Brazil,
Rainlands,
the rainlands, the wheat growing in Canadian prairies, are all things we can apply in Uganda. Now, our students just learn these things because they need to pass. They need to get a distinction and they go to
The writer says that
Because that is what the
educated
education
to
system
ignorance.
requires
Yes.
of them.
I also did. I fought hard to go on government from Bududa. In my year, I was the best student in Bududa. I went to Makerere on government. But I try to make sure I do some plantation farming for coffee, because that is what I can grow in Bududa, in a small piece of land that we have. I told my mom, we cannot partition this land to have beans, to have bananas, to have coffee at the same time. Look for what is more valuable and apply it there. Now, those that have access to money, they will get to know that those in Canadian prairies, after growing the wheat, they have factories to process them so that they are getting the best value for the wheat they are growing. They are not selling it at a road level.
So,
that
this is what I want to say to you. Very good
this
example.
one has it. Wealth creation. What?
That application you talk
addition.
about should be, when people get this knowledge from the school, there should be a complementary government policy that allows this to continue.
It's not a government
Because
policy. It's
if-
a mindset of the people.
Yes.
Because even
I think
even
in
if the
a-
government rose up and said we are giving, let me give you an example. This brother of mine will share the district. Truth is, when you go to Hududa, the 1 million they give to people as it's called PDM. People are saying government is giving back to its people. This is our money. People got that money and they went to bars. So it's a mindset problem.
I'll share a
Capital is
different example.
mindset.
A couple of years ago, about 10 or so, government encouraged people to start planting about 3 crops: vanilla, moringa, and which other crop. People went into that business and government promised them, we have market for that, we just plant, we are going to come buy that from you and make sure you get a good price. People planted. At time of harvest, government said, we are unable to buy your product. People lost millions of shillings that had invested. That means government let down its people that had chosen to have that mindset that applies.
Government had the wrong mindset.
Thank you so much. But you see, that is a conversation that can go either way.
This
Yes,
government
quickly.
failures are senior 6 dropouts also. Don't think they are
Let me go to
special.
the topic I was supposed to discuss. We last started census in 2014. I think I was in senior 3, I remember. Then we had one again this year, and we have seen UBOS pulling off its updated information because of contradictions and so on. I think it still goes back to patriotism. People are in UBOS because they have to make money. Because it's not because I did statistics and I love what I did, so I've got a chance to serve my country. I have to
Apply
do
my
it to the
knowledge.
best. These people, they have been to school, they know very well that what they are doing is the basis for the national transformation. It's what they base on to buy drugs, it's what they base on to buy machinery for security, it's what they base on to make budget appropriations.
Even
for that
family
very
planning.
statistics. Now, they go there because they have to make the money. You understand? So the government is also very soft on these people. You get? Last time I was telling here people that we had a discussion over the CDF's statements and so on, and I told people I have no problem with the CDF. For him, he thinks that is how he has to do the things. But he has an appointing authority. He has the parliament that has the powers to force the executive to pull him out of office. Now, if those people that are capable of pulling him out of office are still comfortable, my problem is with the people that are keeping him in office. Recently, in Korea, President Kim executed 31 government officials. They neglected their responsibilities, were found in corruption, embezzling money, and they didn't work on what caused floods that killed a good number of people, and he hanged them. So, that is how he has set the narrative that
How
you don't
many
join.
Ugandans would have been hanged?
You get. Now we might not hang because we are not. Our states are not that extreme. But we need an action on these people. So long as we don't have action on these people, we are still going to have these stories over and
The
over
culture,
and
it is
over.
now a tradition.
It
not
has
even
now
a
become a culture that once I get a government job, I'm here to get some money for myself. I have to drive a good car. I have to build. My children have to live good diocese and they go to Chitende.
Leave the country.
Ivan, 10 years later, we are unable to get a clear documentation of what Ugandans are, what they have, what they are doing, how much they earn, and people are in offices comfortable. Very few months ago, we had a crisis at Chitezi. It is estimated 96 people perished in that tragedy of garbage, and over 300 were displaced. Millions of shillings in property collapsed in that garbage. Still, just months later, yes, we saw some officials being put out of office, but again, action that has been described not satisfactory when you look at the magnitude of the challenges and how it was so visible that it would happen. What is it with our officials, with our people?
Agencies, naturally, institutions in Uganda, I think he has put it clearly. I think, as we are stood here, the four of us, we have a really big responsibility. if your life is as it is, that we have more years to survive than those in those offices now. The culture and the norms actually created. So I will use a bad word. Let me end it at so. But if we are, for example, if you were to give an example of the EDU boss, if you read statistical,
Dr. Muliisa.
when you read statistical, he's one of the people who had a good record on publishing. He was at the, in Southampton. There is a Mary University in Southampton. You would see he's one of Uganda's best publishers at doctorate on statistics and what. But you see, they have carried him with his good statistical background and put him in an institution here, and you see the Wamakota he has done to an extent. And I'm really wondering, the law is very clear. The law was made by not doctors, very simple men and women. It accommodates enough time for you to present that report. He even had up to December. I wonder the hurry of specifying 10 days. If you, because the magnitude, the implications, the what you pay for having a wrong census report is not only to you, the media, who will use wrong statistics when reporting. It even, I think it caused even emotional damage. For example, the Acholi and Bagis, we were said we have declined by over 200,000. Yet in our places, we had Namisingwa district created in the last 10 years as a result of population explosion. We have had, where he comes from, we were previously one constituency. There is now Wichiga and we have Phillip as a result of population. Electoral Commission, when marking electoral boundaries, the law is very clear. Local Government Act, they base on 100,000 for a constituency. Municipality, they base on 60,000 for a municipality. A sub-county, they base on around 15,000. All those are based on population. We have over 72,000 villages, around 2,000 something sub-counties. All those are based on population. Actually, if you multiply the number of people who are supposed to vote times sub-counties, and then you also put a margin of error and a very honest correlation coefficient, we are more than 45 million. If you're a person who spares your time, you do your ordinary math, me, I may be lucky because I have done deep math. But we'll be automatically, it is very obvious, we'll be for about 45 million. But when such a document is having doubt, you know, it is more important than the 2026 election results. That is how crucial it is. Because in an election, a candidate can die. Hey, we can do away with Museveni if he's not there. We can survive. But our statistics remain key. Because what is the implication? That even the next statistics will be based on a wrong what?
Wrong statistics.
Foundation. These ones lay a foundation for the next. As long as statistically, ever since the law established you boss, you begin getting doubted figures. It takes you more than 100 years improving your efficiency to get what is true. Because this data is made that if you go back again to count, you don't begin the process afresh. It is more of an update. You know, we have capacity. It's like where you see EC. Electoral Commission doesn't begin afresh. It already has boundaries, it has demarcations, the law is there. It only updates. So we can say it was an update because we were at 40 million, we are at 45. But as long as you begin to say you're withdrawing a statement, there are errors, there are many Muslims are very few like this, yet Muslims marry more wives, they overproduce. Most Anglicans have run to Pentecostal churches, that is true. Some things were true, but you would see the correlation doesn't match it. Because even here in the studio, if we chose to do statistics, as we are here in studio, you would find that these statistics should correlate with the national statistics. This is common science. You don't need to be a statistician.
Thank you.
So it causes a big embarrassment. But again, like I started my statement, it puts us in a very hard position. Whether you're in a private sector or government, it puts you in a very difficult Era when he gives an example of people who are executing others, because now those who lost their relatives are there crying, but Chisaka has just changed the position. She will go somewhere. Where
Thank you
is the
so
justice?
much. Thank you so much. And you mentioned that the point of statistics is very important. And you know, even globally, when, for example, the United Nations is making
election results, we can forgive you because there is cheating. Who was cheating in statistics?
when World Trade Organization is talking about the
Who was
Ugandan
rigging?
market, they look at that figure. When UN is talking about the population of Africa and what should be
Human
done to make
Development
sure.
Index is based
Yes.
on that.
Population.
So these are things
It is
you
very
take time,
dangerous.
because who was rigging? These are not elections that you can say someone was rigging.
Thank you,
Who was
Masawi.
rigging statistics?
Thank you, Ivan. Terisah, one of the things that I have thought about quite a bit is the fact that we're still waiting for 10 years to know how many children have been born in that period, to know how many people have bought cars in that period, to know how many schools have been constructed. 10 years is a very long time.
For our
Don't you
economy,
think
it is feasible.
it is about time
The
we
cost-
start doing immediate documentation?
Up to
Children
date.
have
At hospital.
registration at hospital.
But they
You
do.
have
It's done.
They
is-
do it, but where
it
the
is,
problem
it is just at hospital level.
transition
There
of
is no
data.
transition of data to
The
the national pool.
database.
Is it something we should be doing in
Integration
2024?
should be
10 years
minimized.
later, imagine in 2034, it is when we shall be now seeking to know what is the population of Uganda and how we can plan now for that population. What is
I
your
think it's
thought?
very key for us to actually do it for in matters of planning, of national planning, because if there we're able to know how much is collected, how many people do we have in the country, how many people do we have to plan for, how many people are being born every day, what's the death rate. So it helps you allocate resources very well without having people left out of these hospitals. You find that as people are growing, you find that every time they are creating new constituencies, they have to consider things like healthcare, they have to consider things like infrastructure, they have to consider. So if you're not on a daily taking in that data, definitely you're going to lose out on service provision as a country. And that is something we are falling back on, because you find that there's a health center, but you find that most people don't even actually think about the health center. Definitely you're going to go there, you know, there are no drugs, definitely. There is no nurse. It's just there to know that it's just a symbol
Fashion.
of knowing that we have it there. But that's why we have to go back and actually re-strategize. What are our leaders? We need accountability as a country.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, unfortunately, our time is very much fast spent. We have just about 4 minutes to be out of here. I'm going to give a minute to each of you to give us your final remarks, especially about establishing the love for our country, because it seems that's the key to now having all these others run in the way they're supposed to run. I'll start with you, Alex.
Okay, thank you. Some people think the love for one's country is inclined on the academic level, but I want to give a small example. I was in TZ and I was on a roadside and a presidential convoy was passing. So I got excited, wanted to record, and a border man came and told me, stop. Told me, are you Tanzanian? I said, no, I'm Ugandan. He told me, you'll be arrested. Here it's not allowed. So I realized it's a national training in their country for some of the things. It's a culture instilled in almost everyone. So as we mark 62 years of the Sudan independence and some good number of years of real national impacting, I think we have a role as the young people to nurture the people below us. I have a program of the same in my district. If you can do the same in yours, and I have the same in my university. I have some boys I talk to. So we need to do the same to make sure we are building a generation of people that love their country. And I also pray that one day we get a strict leader. We have a low-key Kim Jong-un, we have a representation of John Pombe Magufuli. We slightly have a Kagame. Maybe we shall have a more organized country with more nationalistic.
Thank you so much, Alex Wamakota, for those views, and key to note the pseudo-independence you talk about, but also Phillip, the low-key. Yes, Masawi.
Thanks, Phillip, production team. Mine is simple. Every Ugandan, you have the responsibility to fight for the Uganda you want for yourself. Over to
Thank you so much, Masawi. Ivan from the Forum for Democratic Change. I know Wamakota is leaning to the other opposite end.
It's not opposite. We would do that. We are first one before we go anywhere.
Thank you, Terisah.
It's like, I'll pick up from where I said, it's every person's role and responsibility to love their country. We're not supposed to lay it in one person's country. You need to invest in your country. You need to be committed to your country. You need to learn the anthem of your country. And as young people, definitely we have not had the right upbringing of the real patriotism spirit. But we can start from where we are and build from there and see that we build the country and the Africa and Uganda that we desire. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think we should sing more of that national anthem. I don't know, many people have put out calls that maybe we should put a video for the same, because videos are usually so attractive for people to look at and indeed start singing. Probably we need to think about putting up that anthem such that people start singing it more. We hear it more on radio stations. We hear it more on TV. And
actually a prayer.
Everywhere, yes, in our communities. Amumpaire, Hanah, Terisah, thank you so much for your views and for making time to join us today.
Thank you for organizing this.
Masawi, Ivan, thank you so much for your views and for making time to join us today. And Wamakota, Alex, thank you so much for your views and for making time to join us today. And you, our viewers, thank you so much for keeping it the Inter-University Debates on Civic Space TV. Special thanks to the team behind the machines. You do us a good job, and special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance for making sure such conversations are happening in this beautiful country, the Pearl of Africa. I want to continue to say that let us build the culture of constitutionalism, but also at a global stage, let us continue to call for peace in all regions of the world where we have non-peace, where we have war, places like Ukraine, places like Gaza, places like Lebanon, places like Sudan, Chad, DRC, Niger, Mali, and many other places, Mozambique. We say that whoever can do a thing to bring about peace in those particular regions of the world, please do that, because that's the only way life is sustainable, and that's the only way we shall grow. From us, we say good evening, and may you have freedom always.